Over here I keep odds and sods, so I've got some unusual sockets. A 27 that is quite short, which came in useful for a particular job. What's this one? I forget now. A 32 6-sided, which I bought when I was doing I think it might be something on the El Grand. Odd bits and pieces, a couple of adapters. It's not best practice to adapt from a large to a small, or vice versa. They're not necessarily strong enough for each other, but it'll get you out of a bind if you've not got the right socket or not got the right wrench, or you've got a particular extension issue, or access is tiny. So it's worth having a few converters. I have got one of these things, and I'm going to say before I show it you, I got it not to undo nuts and bolts with. So this is one of those sort of magic sockets, and the idea of it is one socket fits every nut or bolt. And it's like one of them games you used to get, was like a pin board you could press your face into and it makes an impression, and it will grab hold of more or less any nut or bolt up to a certain size. I wouldn't even use this as my emergency socket. It's just asking to round things off. Others may say otherwise, and maybe you can get really good quality ones with very small, very hard pins. I don't know, but that's my opinion. However, it does have a use, and that is it will literally undo anything with a head, or will try to anyway. And if you've got something like that and it's screwed in real hard, push this on, it will grip it, and you can turn rings, hooks, squares, anything at all. And as I often find, wing nuts, not so much on cars because they tend not to have wing nuts, but on things like lawnmowers and anything else you're fixing, that will grab more or less anything and turn it. So handy thing. I don't think, in my opinion, it's a great idea for nuts and bolts on your car, because I think you will round things off. Personal opinion, not criticising the manufacturer, it has a use. And then I've got a what looks like a short extension, well, it was short extension, and to which I've ground a taper. So the head on that is not a straight square, it's a taper, and that was for sump plugs on some Fords. They have a tapered square socket, so rather than use the awful cast tools that you can get, I made a little drive for that. So I got odds and sods. That brings us on to extensions. It's worth having a selection of extensions for each of your drive sizes. So from the 1/2 inch down to the 1/4 inch, and I store the little bits together so they're nice and easy to locate. Again, something that I've learned from experience is look for stuff with good ball detents and little grooves in the squares, because these two don't stay together well and have given me some grief. So worth looking for stuff that actually works, like this one where it needs a bit of effort to detach. Also got a universal joint, I guess you would call it, which can be useful with alignment problems. Rarely use it. What I use a lot more often, and I highly recommend, is a set of wobble extensions. What are wobble extensions? Looks like a sort of conventional extension, and this is a 3/8 one, but where the 3/8 has got a normal square on the end. This has got a ball square. So it's square section, but spherical in its profile that way on. Now these can't apply as much torque as the others because they are necked down there a little bit, but you know, you go in some if you're going to break them off. And they come in little short versions as well, and you can stack them. And if you stack them, so I put that one on top of there. So I've got one wobble extension with another wobble extension and a standard extension. You can go around some pretty decent bends, and the drive is a lot more positive, in my opinion, than these things that can flack around and give you a few issues. And this has the advantage, if you buy decent ones, of fully wobbly, and then if you press, it locks. It's got like 2 detent positions, so you can use it as a fixed drive, and then when you need to, just push it forward and you've got that wobbly drive. Really useful. And again, I've got that in a variety of sizes. But if you're going to do some serious work on cars, at some point you're going to want to start to torque things up to the right values. So I recommend getting yourself a couple of torque wrenches. Torque wrenches range massively in price. You can spend on a 1/2 inch drive like this one. This is a 50 to 200 Newton meters Sykes Picavan. It's an okay brand, but it's not the highest quality device. It's more than adequate. I've since got a really nice Teng one, which feels better to use, looks better to use, doesn't have this horrible flick over drive, even though this is completely tolerable on a torque wrench, because you know, speed of change is pretty irrelevant. Another disadvantage of the cheaper ones like this one is you set the torque here by winding this handle, and then you hold that handle and do your business, but this moves around. There's no locking mechanism for it. My Teng has a locking mechanism, an extra wheel on the end you turn, and that's it, it's locked in position. And also the scale on this is a sticker which gives you some indication of the accuracy. The Teng is an engraved thing that comes with a certificate. But there's a big difference in prices between those two. And I don't think you need lots of torque wrenches. I think for most people you want something in the 50 to 200 range. And again, if you're working on plastics or cars with lots of plastics like a Jag, or you're a bicycle person, you're going to want a really light torque wrench. So mine's actually just a 1/4 inch drive. This is a Premier by Sealy. It's not bad. It's not an expensive torque wrench, but it's got a locking mechanism, so it locks with this slider wherever you put it. It's got a proper switch over head, ratcheting head, and a socket release button, and it's all engraved. And even in here, I think, not that this will ever be used, I must admit, but it's nice to have. There we go. A calibration certificate actually declaring the actual settings on this torque wrench. So this is, you can see it's actually badly aligned. This has been printed in. Yeah, so that's maybe an indicator of a decent torque wrench, is it is calibrated. Now if you're working on trucks, big vans, you're working on Jags, it can be useful to have a higher value torque wrench. Again, my big Teng is that. because you will find Newton meter values that are going up in the sort of 350s, and cheaper wrenches won't do that. So maybe you want 2, maybe you want 3. I think, you know, something half decent, but will give you the range. 5 to 200 covers most people's needs. And if you're a serious enthusiast like myself, then you do want something that goes higher as well. Also over here I've got a selection of spark plug sockets. A spark plug socket, for obviously removing your spark plugs, is a deep socket that includes a rubber liner, and that's to support the ceramic part of the spark plug. But slightly harder to break the spark plug with one of these, because you've got a little bit of compliance if you twitch and get the angle wrong. But also the rubber grips the spark plug, so that when you withdraw it from possibly deep holes like we have on the Jag, then that's going to bring the spark plug out with it. You can pop the spark plug and it stays where it's meant to be, and you pop it back down. Do actually have the tidies for all of the imperial sizes as well, but they take up a lot of space. But when I'm doing work that does need the imperial sizes, then I'll drag one of these out, find the right sockets from my other drawer, pop them in here, arrange them, and maybe have that carrying around the vehicle with me, so I don't have to keep reading the side of the socket. To me, the inch sizes, the fraction sizes, are not intuitive, just because I don't use them very often. So by putting them in here, I can pick up the right one quite quickly. I also have some black extension pieces, which signifies that they are for the Impact set, but there is no difference. They are literally been anodized black just to look like they go with this sort of thing. I would say for Impact extensions, don't worry about it, just use extensions. But again, you might find the odd one with a hole in. It's quite handy. And this one is an odd one and worth having. This is a short extension with a 1/4 inch bit drive socket in the end, which can get you out of an old pickle. That's quite an unusual tool. And that's about it for now. So that was a little look at sockets and ratchets, and maybe give you some ideas of what you might want to get if you're going to put together the ideal DIY home mechanic set that covers you for all things. Your only key decision is, do you want to go metric, do you want to go imperial, or do you want to do all of those things? And my own opinion, unless you're working on cars of the 70s in the UK or earlier, then imperial's probably not going to be your primary. Or if you're in the States, then maybe imperial is your primary, just because metric is a little bit alien, plus a lot of the domestic vehicles will still have imperial fittings. I'll put some links in the description below to tools the same as or very similar to mine, just so you get an impression of prices. Interested in your comments. What have you got in your ratchet socket set? What do you think of using mega expensive brands or cheap brands? And metric versus imperial, do you have to have both? See you soon in another video. Don't forget to subscribe. If you're enjoying our channel, then don't forget to subscribe and click the little bell icon so you get notifications of new videos. And please give us a thumbs up or thumbs down, and you can share the videos. And below the video is always the area where you can comment and get involved with the chat.